Parshas Vayikra introduces Carbonos, the notion of offerings or sacrifices. The very beginning of the Parsha says, Adam ki akriv mikem korban Lashem. An individual, if he brings an offering to Hashem, then it should be of certain animals. And the Parsha goes on at great detail to discuss the various aspects of Carbonos. Carbonos can be representative, they can be brought by the tzibur, they can be brought, which is the community, they can be brought by an individual. Some are mandatory, others are optional, korban nedava, and they are brought of different materials. They can be min ha'bakar, min ha'tzon, min ha'of. They can be of large livestock, cows, sheep, birds. They can be of grain, and grain prepared in different ways. So this is Carbonos. The Torah discusses in Parshas Vayikra the conditions under which an individual or the tzibur might bring a korban. And a conditionality is represented by, in this parsha, by one of two words. As we read earlier, Adam ki yakriv, when or if he brings, and then you have the im. So I counted up in this parsha the number of times that the parsha says either ki or v'im. V'im min hatzon, v'im min ha'of, v'nefesh ki sakriv, a person if he brings v'chi sakriv korban mincha, and if he brings a korban mincha, what should it be? A grain offering. V'im min machvas, it's prepared one way or another way. V'im zevach shlamim korbano, and if he brings a korban shlamim is a type of offering that's eaten not only by the kohanim, but by the ba'alim as well, by the people who bring the offering, who sponsor the offering, shall we say. Not all korbanos are eaten. The korbanola is completely consumed. But the notion of conditionality is sprinkled throughout the description in this parsha. V'im, im, ki, v'chi. There is one notable exception, and that is in Perek Daled, Pasuk Chaf Hey. Asher nasiyechta. Asher nasiyechta. What is Asher nasiyechta? Let's look this up. Chaf Bey, sorry. Asher nasiyechta v'asa achas mikol mitzvos Hashem elokov asher lo seyasena b'shkogav Hashem. When? Or does it mean when? What does Asher mean? Asher is not ki, and it's not im. It doesn't sound conditional. It doesn't sound like if then. It sounds like when. As the question, as they say, it's not if but when. Here it's when. So a nasi is a prince. This applies to, the Mefarshim say it applies to a king as well. It's a political leader. So what does Rashi say that? Rashi notes implicitly that there is an unusual language here, an unusual word that's used, that the pasuk uses, which is asher. And Rashi relates this to a phrase that many of us are familiar with, ashrei. Ashrei. Ashrei means happy or fortunate. Ashrei Yosef v'secha. Fortunate are those, or happy are those, who dwell in the house, in your house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what does Rashi say? Lashon ashrei. What does ashrei mean? Why is this a happy thing, a fortunate thing? So Rashi comments based on Gemara in Horios. He says, Ashrei Hador Shanasi Shalo Nosein Lev Lahavi Kapara Shigaso. Happy or fortunate is the generation whose leader, Nasi, cares, Nosein Lev, pays heed to bring an atonement, meaning an offering to achieve atonement, on his inadvertent commission of a transgression. Kal v'chomer shemischaret al zdonosov, and how much more so that a generation would be fortunate if the political leader admits when he's wrong, when he has sin. So this is Rashi's explanation. The Ibn Ezra says that actually this Ashar relates all the way back to the introduction many verses earlier about a par helim davar. V'im kol adas Yisrael yishku v'ne'elam. So if the entire community of Israel errs v'ne'elam davar, and something is hidden, and this is a bit of an enigmatic expression, and Rashi says that this is talking about the Sanhedrin representing the ultimate court. It represents the great court. It represents the entire nation, and the offering is brought if they ruled incorrectly in a serious matter. If they say, for example, that something which is prohibited by punishment of kores, which is death at the hands of heaven, and they say it's permissible, well, that's a serious matter, and the Sanhedrin has to bring an offering to achieve atonement. So he says, Asher nosiachta is a continuation of his conditionality. It does say ve'im kol adas Yisrael yishku, and if, which is conditionality. If it happens, then they have to bring a korban. The Ramban is not satisfied with either explanation, and he says straight up, he says, ve'ein tzarich l'kol zeh. He cites both Rashi and the Ibn Ezra, and he says you don't need to, the implication is you don't need, meaning you don't need to stretch, is the implication of the Ramban. He says that Asher has the same import as Ka'asher, which means when. When a Nasi sins. Well, that's a little bit challenging. What do you mean when a Nasi? It's not if, but when? When a Nasi sins? What's up with that? The Nasi will sin, that's the implication. The Sifsei Chachamim addresses this. Is in fact, he cites a Zohar, as does the Torah T'mima in discussing this, which is that it is certain that the Nasi will sin. It's at least quite likely when he sins, he has to bring an offer. So Rabbi Avigdor Miller, I heard this, I didn't hear Rabbi Avigdor Miller say this, I heard this in his name from my late brother, Aharon Yosef, Aaron Prero, Zohar. He told me that Rabbi Avigdor Miller asked the following question. So why be a Nasi? If a Nasi, if a prince, if a leader, if a political leader is almost guaranteed to sin, why is he guaranteed to sin? He's guaranteed to sin because leadership presents challenges that when somebody is not a leader, he hasn't experienced. So there are all kinds of, either you can say libo gasba, he becomes in a certain respect self-consumed, as the saying goes, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, or he's responding to many different pressures and constituencies and political intrigue, and it's unlikely that he's going to get everything right. So he gets into a position of leadership where he is almost, we could say, destined to sin. So the question is, well, then why is it okay? Why become a leader? If leadership presents unprecedented challenges that inescapably lead to error of one sort or another, then why become a leader? Just dodge that bullet and be an ordinary, good Jew. And Rabbi Avigdor Miller says that avoiding sin is a goal of life, but it's not the goal of life. The goal is to do God's will. The goal is to use your specific talents, l'chvod shamayim. And if somebody is capable of leadership, he has to step up to the plate. He has to exercise that leadership. Certainly, if there is no one else, b'makom she'en anoshim, he has to do that. Now, let's think about who our heroes are. There are, the Gemara in Shabbos says that there are 4 people who didn't sin. Who are those 4 people? They're Binyamin. That was Yosef's brother and Yaakov's youngest son. Binyamin, Amram, who was the father of Moshe. Yishai, the father of David. And Kilov, the son of David. Now, I could have asked, okay, who are the 4 people who didn't sin? Now, if that's a real big deal, everybody would know that. We all know the forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. We also know Yosef, Aharon, David, Shlomo, the Nevi'im. People have heard of these others and may know something about these others, the 4 non-sinners. But apparently, according to the Gemara, everyone else has sinned. Wow. Crazy. It reminds me of a time that my family and I went on a nighttime walk in Ya'ar Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem forest. We had a tour guide. And she trained us for quite a while to get solid footing, to make sure we didn't fall. And we had stability under our feet. And everybody's walking in the forest, and we're all looking down at our feet to make sure that we don't take any missteps and fall off the trail. And then she says, if all you do is watch your feet, if all you do is make sure that you don't stumble, you are not going to accomplish what you came here for. You came here to see the forest at night, to see the different vegetation, to see the different animals, to see the signs of the different animals, to hear the sounds. And if all you're focusing on is making sure that your footing is solid, you're not going to accomplish your goal. Good Shabbos.